So if you've seen the movie American Gangster, the story of Frank Lucas, one of the biggest African-American drug lords in the East Coast, the one on the West Coast was a man named Freeway Rick Ross. In the 80s, he sold nearly $1 billion of crack cocaine. Net profits $300 million, which the equivalent of today would be $2.5 billion gross, $850 net, and he did this at a time where he didn't know how to read and write. With that being said, today we have Rick Ross. Rick, thanks for coming out.
Man, I'm glad to be here.
It's good to have you out here, man.
Wow. I mean, I'm just blown away, man.
Yeah, appreciate you for coming out. I got a lot of directions I want to go. Obviously, I've seen your documentary, and I want to talk about a little bit about your story for some that don't know. But there's also an element of it that I want to talk about. That are you familiar with Sammy the Bull Gravano?
I heard of Sammy the Bull.
So Sammy the Bull Gravano and I spent some time together. We were having a conversation. And one of the things we talked about is that moment where a kid is growing up, he's innocent, she's innocent, they don't know what's going on, and then all of a sudden they make a decision to go and they turn, right? And is that DNA, is that upbringing, is that fatherless environment, is that culture, is that experiences in life? I kind of want to hear what you think about that. But
definitely culture. We have to give the environment that we brought up in a lot of credit, because in my personal humble opinion is that we are an accumulation of everything we saw, heard, and been around. We take all that information and we try to come up with who we are, and that's what being yourself really is. But in actuality, you are an accumulation of everything that you've come in contact with, and how you took that information and deciphered it to be what you thought it should be.
So you do think there's some of it that affects you. Now, I guess the part I would be curious about is how much of it is your wiring, the way you were born, how much of it is upbringing, how much of it is experiences, and what is it like, a Rick Ross in a complete different environment, what direction would you go? Who would you be today?
Well, we can tell that now, because I'm pretty much directing myself in the directions that I want to go in, and I'm no longer allowing outside forces to direct who I am and where I'm planning on going. I'm old enough now and wise enough to make the decisions, but with us as human beings, we're being bombarded with people who are trying to control our minds, our bodies, to perform the acts that they want us to perform.
I'm curious to hear about that.
Well, marketing. Marketing is a form of convincing people to do whatever the marketer feel like they should be doing.
So let me ask you, before you going into, the drug route and you being introduced to it, if I was in high school with you, who was Rick Ross?
I was a kid who thought that I was gonna one day be playing in Wimbledon or U.S. Open. I had aspirations of being a star tennis player, had never drunk a beer, had never smoked a cigarette, had never hit a joint.
Ever?
Not at that time, no. Totally a virgin, all the way around, looking for guidance, looking for directions, not knowing what choices I should be making, and had some miscomings as well. Had some defects. What I thought was defects, but wasn't necessarily defects. Was a position where I didn't understand the principles and the rules of the game. It's like trying to play football and you've been taught basketball rules.
About life. Now, your mother was in the picture, obviously, and your father wasn't in the picture at all.
No, father wasn't there.
So who played the role of a father in your life? Did you have a coach? Did you have a mentor or teacher?
Well, I've had many people come into my life and play roles of mentors, fathers, and I've adopted people, Did I pick the right people all the time? No.
Now, you went to Dorsey High School, right?
Yes.
I was telling you earlier, I used to sell memberships at Valley Total Fitness, and I would sell them at Fox Hills Mall, which Fox Hills Mall, a lot of my friends went to Dorsey High.
Yeah.
And we were talking about Dexter, Sexy Dex. There was a guy selling memberships. He played baseball.
My memory is not really that well from the past. I'm more of a forward-thinking guy. Like, I could meet somebody last week, and if I run into them again, I probably won't remember who they are. You know, that's one of the reasons that with me, I always try to treat everybody right, because if you treat them wrong, you know, you run into them again and you don't know how you treated them, and then they be like, it's a funny story, you know. When I first got to prison, to Lompoc, USP Lompoc, and I'm walking down the hallway, and this guy comes up to me, and he's about 6'2", 6'3", and looked like he lives on the weight pile, right? He's all muscle. He looked like that statue right there. Almost that big too, right? and I'm walking down the hallway, and he walks right into me.
He walks right into you,
yeah,
intentionally.
Intentionally.
Yeah.
And he was like, "You don't know who I am?" And I was like, "No, I don't know." I don't know who you are, but I hope I didn't do nothing to you. And it was just so happened that he was a young kid that I had met when he was about 14, 15 years old. And I did right by him, and I was so glad that I had.
You were glad that you had?
Yeah, I was glad that I did right by him, because I mean, he looked like that statue right there.
I mean, the one thing with you is you didn't create a lot of enemies, though. People liked you. I mean, even your enemies liked you.
I hate enemies. I don't want any enemies.
Yeah.
I want all friends.
What was your strategy for doing that? Is it just, you know, respect everybody? Was it a simple?
You gotta respect everybody. I mean, if you don't respect everybody, then you kind of disrespecting yourself, because in the big picture, we're all kind of joined together. You know, it's like we're all like cells on this planet that have to function with each other. You know, nobody lives on this planet without help from somebody else, you know, and I learned that at an early age, and that was one of my strong points, you know, just treating everybody the way that I wanted to be treated.